Imagine boarding a first-class flight, expecting luxury, only to face a cold slap of disrespect. Meet Maya Johnson, a poised and powerful woman in Seat 1A on Delta Flight 815, soaring from Atlanta's bustling Hartsfield-Jackson Airport to San Francisco's glittering tech scene. She's ready to conquer a high-stakes tech summit, but something's off. The moment she settles into her plush leather seat, a senior flight attendant, Karen Mitchell, serves her a stale sandwich instead of her pre-ordered gourmet meal, while others sip champagne and savor lobster. The chill in Karen's smile isn't a mistake. It's deliberate. Why is Maya being singled out? What did she do to deserve this? As the cabin hums with privilege, Maya's calm exterior hides a storm brewing inside. Years of being underestimated fuel her resolve. Will she let this slide? Or will she turn this insult into a reckoning that shakes an entire industry? One thing's clear. This flight is about to land in history. Buckle up, hit that subscribe button, and join us for a story of power, prejudice, and unstoppable change. The hum of Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport enveloped Maya Johnson as she stepped into the Delta Airlines first-class lounge, her polished leather briefcase swinging lightly at her side. At 38, Maya carried herself with a quiet power. Her tailored charcoal suit hugging her frame, her braided hair swept into a neat bun that gleamed under the lounge's soft lighting. The space was a cocoon of luxury: plush leather armchairs, the faint clink of wine glasses, and the smooth notes of jazz drifting from hidden speakers. A bar glowed with bottles of Napa Valley Chardonnay, their labels catching the light like tiny beacons. Maya's destination was San Francisco, the Moscone Center, where she'd deliver a keynote at a tech summit that could catapult her company, Horizon Innovations, into new global markets. But for now, she was here, in Atlanta, her home, where every step felt like a testament to her roots. Growing up in the West End, Maya had navigated a world that often tried to shrink her. The daughter of a school teacher and a mechanic, she'd spent her childhood in a modest brick house on Lucille Avenue, where dreams were big but opportunities scarce. Yet, she'd clawed her way up, turning her knack for coding into Horizon Innovations, a black-led AI firm now valued at $2 billion. Forbes had named her to its 40 Under 40 list, a badge she wore with pride but never flaunted. As she settled into a corner armchair, her phone buzzed with a text from Tasha Williams, her assistant and college friend. "Kill it at Moscone, boss." "You got this." Maya smiled warmly, her fingers hovering over the reply. Tasha's loyalty was an anchor, a reminder of the community that had shaped her. The lounge buzzed with traveler suits typing furiously on laptops, a couple sipping martinis, a family arguing over boarding passes. Maya's gaze drifted to the bar, where a young man with a buzz cut and wire-rimmed glasses stared at her, his phone clutched tightly. He was maybe 22, his Georgia Tech hoodie, a giveaway of his student status. Hesitantly, he approached, his sneakers squeaking on the polished floor. Excuse me, Ms. Johnson?" he said nervously, his voice cracking. "I'm James Carter, a tech intern. I read about Horizon and Wired. Could I, maybe get a selfie?" Maya's smile widened, genuine and disarming. "Only if you tell me what you're building at Tech," she teased playfully. James's eyes lit up. "It's a machine learning app for community health data," he stammered eagerly. "Kinda like what you do, but, smaller." Maya nodded, impressed. "Keep at it, James. The world needs more minds like yours." They snapped the photo, James beaming as he retreated, already typing furiously on his phone, likely posting about meeting his idol. Maya watched him go, a flicker of pride warming her chest. Moments like these reminded her why she fought so hard to carve out space in a world that often shut doors on people like her. Across the lounge, near the gate for Delta Flight 815, Karen Mitchell stood with a colleague, her crisp Delta uniform immaculate, her blonde hair tied back in a severe bun. At 45, Karen was a senior flight attendant, her polished exterior masking a sharpness that cut through the air. Her eyes locked onto Maya, narrowing slightly, her lips curling into a tight, insincere smile. "Look at her," Karen muttered to her colleague, her voice low and edged with disdain. "Thinks she owns first class." The colleague, a younger attendant, with a nervous laugh, shifted uncomfortably. "She's probably just another exec, Karen," he said cautiously. Karen's smile didn't waver, but her eyes glinted with something darker. "Let's see how she handles first class," she whispered venomously, turning toward the gate. Maya didn't notice Karen's stare, but she felt the weight of eyes on Hera sensation she'd grown accustomed to. In boardrooms, at conferences, even in spaces like this, her presence as a black woman often drew scrutiny, a silent question of whether she belonged. She straightened, her fingers brushing the leather of her briefcase, where her summit presentation waited. This trip wasn't just about Horizon's expansion, it was about proving that her place at the table wasn't negotiable. She sipped her sparkling water, the bubbles sharp against her tongue, and glanced at the gate. The boarding call for Flight 815 crackled over the speakers, and travelers began to gather their belongings. As Maya rose, her phone pinged again, this time a reminder of her pre-ordered meal for the flight: grilled salmon with a glass of Pinot Noir, a ritual she'd perfected as a Diamond Medallion member. She imagined the first-class cabin, its wide seats and ambient lighting, a sanctuary after weeks of grueling prep. But something in the air felt off, a subtle shift she couldn't name. Karen's whisper lingered in the background, unheard but heavy with intent. Maya adjusted her suit jacket, her movements deliberate, and joined the line at the gate. The jet bridge stretched ahead, a tunnel to San Francisco, to her future and to a confrontation she couldn't yet foresee. James watched her go, his post already live on X. "Just met Maya Johnson, tech hero, Horizon Innovations." The lounge emptied, the jazz fading into the airport's hum. Karen boarded the plane first, her steps brisk, her mind already spinning plans to assert her control. Maya followed, her briefcase a shield, her calm exterior a promise of resilience. This was more than a flight. It was the start of a journey that would test her, challenge her, and maybe change everything. As she stepped onto the plane, the story was just beginning, a spark waiting to ignite. The first-class cabin of Delta Flight 815 enveloped Maya Johnson like a promise of sanctuary, its wide leather seats gleaming under soft ambient lighting, each equipped with a personal screen flickering with movie options. As she settled into seat 1A, the best spot on the plane, Maya felt the weight of her briefcase holding her Moscone Center Keynote teas slightly. The cabin smelled faintly of lavender, a curated touch for Delta's elite passengers. At 38, Maya, the CEO of Horizon Innovations, was no stranger to luxury, but this flight was special, a 5-hour journey from Atlanta to San Francisco, a chance to refine her pitch for a global AI partnership. She adjusted her charcoal suit, her braided hair catching the light, and opened her tablet to review her slides. A week ago, as a Diamond Medallion member, she'd pre-ordered her signature meal grilled salmon with a glass of Pinot Noir, a ritual that grounded her in moments of high stakes. The cabin buzzed quietly as passengers boarded. In 1C, Richard Hayes, a 50-year-old venture capitalist in a bespoke Navy suit, sprawled confidently, his Rolex glinting as he flipped through a Wall Street journal. His laugh, loud and self-assured, filled the space as he chatted with a colleague over the phone about crushing it in crypto. Across the aisle in 2A, Lila Nguyen, a 34-year-old Vietnamese-American lawyer, sat more reservedly, her minimalist black dress and legal pad suggesting a woman accustomed to precision. Lila's eyes darted around the cabin, taking in the opulence with a mix of curiosity and caution. Her trip to a San Francisco legal conference marking a rare splurge on first class. The plane taxied, and the cabin crew began their rounds. Karen Mitchell, the senior flight attendant, moved with practiced grace, her crisp Delta uniform and tightly pulled blonde hair projecting authority. At 45, Karen commanded the cabin like a stage, her smile polished but sharp, like a blade hidden in silk. She stopped at Richard's seat first, her tone warm and deferential. "Mr. Hayes, welcome aboard," she said brightly. "We've got your lobster thermidor ready, paired with a vintage champagne. Anything else you need?" Richard grinned smugly. "Just keep the bubbly coming, Karen," he replied playfully, and she chuckled, her eyes lingering on him approvingly. Karen's demeanor shifted as she approached Maya, her smile tightening into something colder, almost dismissive. "Good afternoon," she said curtly, her voice clipped. "I'm afraid your meal order didn't go through system glitch. We've got a turkey sandwich instead." She placed a plastic tray on Maya's table, the sandwich limp and stale, flanked by a half-filled cup of water. No silverware, no napkin, just a stark contrast to the gleaming trays of lobster and champagne being served around her. Karen's eyes flicked over Maya, a subtle smirk curling her lips, betraying her intent. She deliberately swapped Maya's order in the system earlier, a calculated act to humiliate the black woman in 1A, certain she wouldn't push back. Maya's breath caught, a familiar sting of being overlooked piercing her chest. She'd felt this before in boardrooms, where her ideas were ignored, at conferences where she was mistaken for staff. But she kept her face composed, her fingers tapping her smartwatch rhythmically, a quiet anchor to her resolve. "I ordered a week ago," she said evenly, her tone firm but measured. "I have the confirmation email." Karen shrugged, her smirk deepening. "These things happen," she replied dismissively, already turning away. "Enjoy your flight." The words landed like a slap, casual but heavy with disdain. Lila, in 2A, watched the exchange, her fingers tightening around her legal pad. She noticed the disparity Richard's lavish meal, Maya's meager tray, and felt a pang of unease. As a lawyer, Lila was trained to spot injustice, but her instinct to stay neutral warred with a growing urge to speak up. She glanced at Maya, catching the brief flicker of hurt in her eyes before it was masked by composure. Lila hesitated, her lips parting, then closing, her silence a choice she'd later question. Richard, oblivious, clinked glasses with a passenger in 1D, their laughter echoing. "This is why I fly Delta," he boasted loudly, savoring his lobster. The cabin's luxury felt hollow to Maya now, its sheen tainted by Karen's slight. She didn't touch the sandwich, not out of pride, but because she needed to process the insult, to let it fuel her. Her mind flashed to her West End childhood, to her mother's words, "They'll try to make you small, Maya. Don't let them." She straightened, her gaze locking onto Karen's retreating figure, the attendant's confident stride, a challenge Maya was beginning to understand. The plane climbed into the sky, the Atlanta skyline fading below. Maya's smartwatch glowed with a new message from Tasha. "You good up there?" She typed a quick reply, "Not quite. Stay ready." Her fingers steady but her heart racing. Karen's smirk lingered in her mind, a signal of something deeper than a simple mix-up. Lila, still watching, scribbled a note on her pad, her unease growing. Richard sipped his champagne, unaware of the storm brewing in 1A. The cabin hummed with privilege, but, for Maya, it was a battlefield, one she'd navigated before and would again. As the flight soared over Georgia, she felt the weight of her briefcase, her presentation, her purpose. This wasn't just about a meal, it was about her place, her right to be seen. And she wasn't about to let it slide. The seatbelt sign dimmed, and the cabin settled into a rhythm. Karen moved to the galley, her smirk fading into a private satisfaction, believing she'd asserted her control. But Maya's fingers hovered over her smartwatch, her mind already turning to the tools at her disposal: Horizon's AI, her network, her resolve. The slight was a spark, and Maya was ready to ignite it. The flight was far from over, and the real journey was just beginning. The first-class cabin of Delta Flight 815 hummed softly as it cruised over Tennessee, the lavender-scented air now tinged with the faint aroma of lobster and champagne from nearby trays. Maya Johnson sat in seat 1A, her untouched turkey sandwich a stark reminder of Karen Mitchell's calculated slight. The cabin's ambient lighting cast a warm glow on her charcoal suit, but her mind was sharp, her fingers hovering over her smartwatch. At 38, Maya, the CEO of Horizon Innovations, had faced dismissals before boardrooms where her voice was ignored, pitches where she was mistaken for an assistant. But this, the stale sandwich and Karen's smirk, felt personal, a deliberate attempt to diminish her. She wouldn't let it stand. Her smartwatch screen flickered to life, displaying Horizon's AI app, InsightGuard, a tool she'd developed to uncover patterns others missed. Thanks to a pre-existing partnership with Delta, she had access to passenger and crew data, and she intended to use it. Maya tapped the app, her movements precise, pulling up the crew manifest for Flight 815. Karen Mitchell's profile appeared. 15 years at Delta, senior flight attendant, 3 complaints for bias in the past 2 years, none resulting in disciplinary action. The data was a red flag, confirming Maya's suspicion that Karen's actions weren't a one-off. She leaned back, her braided hair brushing the leather seat, and let the information sink in. The cabin around her was a microcosm of privilege. Richard Hayes in 1C, still chuckling over his champagne, oblivious to the tension. Lila Nguyen in 2A, her legal pad now closed, her eyes occasionally darting toward Maya with unspoken concern. Footsteps approached, sharp and deliberate. Karen reappeared, holding a coffee pot, her smile as tight as before. "Coffee?" she offered coolly, her tone laced with feigned politeness. Before Maya could respond, Karen tilted the pot, accidentally, spilling a stream of hot coffee onto Maya's leather briefcase, narrowly missing her laptop. The liquid pooled on the tray, soaking the sandwich. "Oh, my apologies," Karen said insincerely, her eyes glinting with satisfaction. "Let me get you a napkin." She turned away, her stride confident, believing she'd landed another blow. Maya's jaw tightened, but she remained unfazed, grabbing a tissue from her pocket to wipe the briefcase. The spill was no accident. Karen's malice was escalating, a power play to assert dominance. Maya's mind flashed to a moment a decade ago at Goldman Sachs, 200 West St. New York. At 28, she'd walked into a boardroom, her first major AI pitch in hand, only to be mistaken for a secretary. "Can you grab us some coffee?" a white executive had asked dismissively. She'd smiled, unshaken, and replied, "Sure, after I present my 10 million security platform." The room had gone silent, and she'd won the deal. That memory fueled her now, a reminder that she'd turned slights into victories before. Near the galley, Daniel Ruiz, a 28-year-old junior flight attendant, overheard Karen's low chuckle. "She thinks she's special," Karen muttered to another crew member, her voice dripping with scorn. Daniel, with his short hair and nervous smile, shifted uncomfortably, his hands fidgeting with a tray. He joined Delta a year ago, drawn by job security, but Karen's authority intimidated him. Her priority list, favoring white passengers, clashed with his sense of fairness, yet he'd stayed silent, fearing repercussions. Now, watching Maya calmly clean her briefcase, he felt a pang of guilt, his loyalty to Karen wavering. Maya, unaware of Daniel's unease, opened her smartwatch again, her fingers moving swiftly. She sent an encrypted message to Tasha Williams, her assistant and longtime friend. "Flight 815, Crew ID KM, 4721. Emergency audit. Dig deep." Tasha, back in New York, would know what to do if her cybersecurity skills were unmatched. Maya's message was a spark, the first step in turning Karen's slight into a reckoning. She glanced out the window, the Tennessee clouds a blur below, and felt a quiet resolve settle in. This wasn't just about Harriet, it was about every person who'd been made to feel small, invisible, unworthy. Lila, in 2A, caught Maya's eye, her expression a mix of empathy and hesitation. She wanted to speak, to acknowledge the wrong she'd witnessed, but her lawyer's instinct to stay neutral held her back. She scribbled another note, her pen pressing harder, a sign of her growing unrest. Richard, meanwhile, ordered another glass of champagne, his laughter grating against the cabin's tension. "Karen, you're a gem," he called out jovially, oblivious to the storm brewing. In the galley, Karen leaned against the counter, her smirk fading into a private calculation. She believed Maya would stay quiet, that her coffee spill had reinforced her control. But Daniel, still lingering nearby, caught her eye and looked away, his unease deepening. He'd seen Maya's composure, her deliberate calm, and it unsettled him. She wasn't the passenger Karen thought she could dismiss. Maya closed her tablet, her Keynote slides untouched. The cabin's luxury felt like a facade now, its comforts masking a deeper inequity. Her mother's words echoed again. "They'll try to make you small, Maya. Don't let them." She tapped her smartwatch once more, checking the time, 3 hours until San Francisco. Enough time to plan, to gather evidence, to turn this flight into something bigger. The plane droned on, slicing through the sky, and Maya's resolve hardened. Karen's actions were a challenge, but Maya was ready to answer not with anger, but with precision. As the clouds parted outside, she knew the real battle was just beginning, and she was armed with the tools to fight it. The seatbelt sign blinked off, signaling a moment of calm, but for Maya, it was the start of a calculated move. She glanced at Daniel, noting his nervous demeanor, and filed it away. The cabin hummed, but beneath its surface, a current of change was stirring, one that would carry Maya far beyond this flight. The 42nd floor of 1 Pen 1 at 250 W 34th St. New York pulsed with the quiet intensity of late-night work. Tasha Williams, 30, sat at her glass desk in Horizon Innovation's sleek office, the Manhattan skyline glittering through floor-to-ceiling windows. Her vibrant afro framed her face, catching the glow of her dual monitors, where lines of code scrolled like a digital heartbeat. As Maya Johnson's right-hand woman and cybersecurity expert, Tasha was used to high-stakes tasks. But the encrypted message she'd just received from Maya sent mid-flight on Delta 815 over Tennessee a fire in her. Flight 815, crew ID, KM 4721. Emergency audit. Dig deep. Tasha's fingers paused over the keyboard, her lips tightening. She knew Maya's calm tone masked urgency, and the word emergency meant trouble, likely another instance of the bias they'd both faced too often as black women in tech. The office was silent, save for the soft hum of servers and the distant honk of taxis below. Tasha leaned back in her chair, her no-nonsense attitude sharpened by the task ahead. She and Maya had met at Spelman College, bonding over late-night coding sessions and shared dreams of breaking barriers. Now, as Maya's assistant, Tasha was her shield, her strategist, her sister in arms. She opened Horizon's InsightGuard app, its interface a testament to Maya's genius, and accessed Delta's service logs through their partnership. Her screen filled with data, passenger complaints, crew schedules, service timestamps. Tasha's eyes narrowed as she zeroed in on Karen Mitchell, crew ID KM 4721, the senior flight attendant Maya had flagged. Footsteps echoed in the hallway, and Dr. Olivia Grant, 42, stepped into the office, her colorful scarf a splash of vibrancy against her tailored blazer. A black behavioral scientist consulting for Horizon, Olivia's expertise in bias detection was unmatched. "Late night, Tasha?" she asked warmly, adjusting her glasses. Tasha smirked, her tone playful but urgent. "Maya's got me chasing a ghost on flight 815. You in?" Olivia nodded, pulling up a chair. "Always. What's the play?" Tasha shared Maya's message, her voice tightening. "Karen Mitchell. Maya thinks she's targeting her, and I'm betting it's not random." Olivia's brow furrowed, her analytical mind already at work. "Let's run her through InsightGuard's facial recognition. It'll flag any bias patterns in her interactions." Tasha's fingers flew across the keyboard, pulling up Karen's service logs. The data was damning. Non-white passengers on Karen's flights waited 5 times longer for service 40. 2 seconds for white passengers. Over 3 minutes for others. Complaints dotted her record. A black businessman ignored for an hour, an Asian family served last despite early boarding. Yet, no disciplinary action. Tasha's jaw clenched, her own memories surfacing. She'd once been passed over for a promotion at a tech startup, her white colleague praised for fitting the culture. The sting drove her now, her keystrokes fierce. "This isn't just Maya," she said intensely. "This is a pattern." Olivia ran the facial recognition module, her voice calm but focused. InsightGuard's picking up an 87% bias index in Karen's interactions micro-expressions, response delays, all favoring white passengers. The screen displayed a heat map of Karen's behavior, red zones flaring around non-white passengers. Tasha shook her head, her tone bitter. "And Delta let her slide for 15 years. Olivia's eyes softened, her voice steady. "Systems protect their own until someone forces them to look. Maya's that someone." Tasha nodded, her resolve hardening. She began compiling a report, her data airtight, every statistic a weapon. A flashback flickered in Tasha's mind, not of her own struggles, but of Karen's past. 5 years ago, at Delta's training facility in Atlanta, Karen had stood in a classroom, her uniform pristine, absorbing a trainer's praise. "Prioritize high-value clients," the trainer had said, his tone coded, eyes lingering on white trainees. "They're the ones who tip, who complain less." Karen had nodded eagerly, her entitlement cemented, believing high value meant passengers who looked like her. The memory, pieced together from Delta's archived training logs Tasha accessed, humanized Karen without excusing Hersha, was a product of a system that rewarded bias, her actions a reflection of unchecked privilege. Tasha's report took shape. Charts, complaint logs, InsightGuard's bias index. She titled it, "Systemic Discrimination, Flight 815 Crew Analysis," and addressed it to Delta's CEO, Ed Bastian, at 1030 Delta BLVD, Atlanta, GA 30354, copying Marcus Lee, Maya's legal advisor. Her fingers hesitated over the send button, her heart racing. This wasn't just about Karen, it was about exposing a culture that let her thrive. She hit send, the email zipping across the digital ether, a missile aimed at Delta's core. "Done," she said quietly, her voice heavy with purpose. Olivia squeezed her shoulder, her tone encouraging. "Maya's lucky to have you." Tasha's smirk returned, softer now. "We're lucky to have each other." The Manhattan skyline sparkled, indifferent to the battle unfolding. Tasha's screens glowed with new data, cross-referencing Karen's flights over 3 years, each log a piece of evidence. She thought of Maya, high above Tennessee, facing Karen's malice alone. Tasha's reflection in the window showed a woman who'd fought her own battles, who knew the cost of being seen as less than. This report wasn't just for Maya, it was for every passenger who'd been dismissed, every person who'd felt invisible. The clock ticked past midnight, but Tasha's focus didn't waver. She sent a quick reply to Maya. "Got it. Report's out. We're bringing it down." The office hummed, a nerve center of change. Olivia began drafting a follow-up analysis, her pen scratching notes on bias mitigation. Tasha leaned back, her afro brushing the chair, and exhaled. The fight was on, and she was all in. Across the country, Maya's smartwatch would soon ping with Tasha's message, a signal that the tide was turning. The plane was still hours from San Francisco, but the groundwork for justice was laid here in New York, where Tasha's resolve burned bright, ready to ignite the next phase of Maya's battle. The first-class cabin of Delta Flight 815 felt like a pressure cooker as it approached Denver airspace, the soft hum of the engines barely masking the tension simmering in Seat 1A. Maya Johnson sat poised, her charcoal suit pristine despite the coffee stain Karen Mitchell had left on her briefcase an hour earlier. The stale turkey sandwich remained untouched, a symbol of Karen's deliberate slight, but Maya's mind was elsewhere, her smartwatch glowing with Tasha Williams' reply. "Got it. Report's out. We're bringing it down." The message, sent from Horizon Innovation's New York office, was a lifeline, confirming that Tasha's investigation into Karen's bias was now in Delta's hands. But Maya knew the battle was far from over. Karen's malice was escalating, and she needed to stay sharp. The cabin's lavender scent mingled with the clink of champagne glasses from Richard Hayes in 1C, his boisterous laugh grating against Maya's focus. In 2A, Lila Nguyen clutched her legal pad, her minimalist black dress a contrast to her growing unease. The Vietnamese-American lawyer had watched Karen's coffee spill, seen the smirk, and felt her own silence weigh heavier. Now, her eyes met Maya's, a flicker of resolve breaking through her hesitation. Lila leaned forward, her voice low but earnest. "You okay?" she asked quietly, her tone laced with concern. Maya's lips curved into a subtle nod, her gaze steady. "I've dealt with worse," she replied softly, her words a bridge, hinting at a plan she wasn't ready to share. Lila's shoulders relaxed, a silent pact Formangan allyship born in the cabin's charged air. Karen Mitchell moved through the aisle, her crisp Delta uniform and tightly pulled blonde hair projecting control, but her eyes betrayed a flicker of unease. At 45, she'd mastered the art of subtle power plays, but Maya's unflappable calm was unsettling. Sensing a need to reassert dominance, Karen approached Maya's seat under the guise of a routine check. Her fingers brushed Maya's laptop, still open to her Moscone Center Keynote, and she discreetly tugged at the charging port, intending to damage it as sabotage to derail Maya's summit presentation. "Just making sure everything's secure," Karen said smoothly, her voice dripping with false sincerity. But before she could twist the port, Daniel Ruiz, the 28-year-old junior flight attendant, stepped forward, his nervous smile masking a sudden courage. "I got this, Karen," he said quickly, unplugging the cable safely and handing it to Maya. Karen's eyes narrowed, her control slipping, but she forced a tight smile and retreated to the galley. Daniel's intervention was a crack in Karen's armor, and Maya seized the moment. She'd noted his unease earlier, his fidgeting when Karen mocked her, and now saw an opening. "Mr. Ruiz," she said calmly, her voice low but commanding, "can you explain Delta's meal policy? As a Diamond Medallion member, I ordered my salmon a week ago, with confirmation." Daniel froze, his short hair damp with sweat, his hands clutching a tray. It's based on order time, usually," he stammered nervously, his eyes darting to the galley where Karen lingered. Maya leaned forward, her tone razor-sharp but composed. "Then why was my order ignored while others got their meals? Is there a priority list?" Daniel's face paled, his voice barely a whisper. "Karen, she has a list. Certain passengers get served first." He glanced at Richard, then back at Maya, his guilt spilling out. "It's not right, I know." Karen, overhearing from the galley, glared at Daniel, her eyes blazing with betrayal. Her control was unraveling, her carefully curated authority challenged by a junior colleague, and the woman in 1A she'd underestimated. She gripped the counter, her knuckles white, but stayed silent, knowing a scene would expose her further. Maya's mind flashed to a mentor's advice from her early days at Horizon. Use their rules against them. The words, spoken by a black tech pioneer who'd navigated Silicon Valley's biases, fueled her strategy now. Daniel's admission was evidence, a lever to pry open Karen's facade, and Maya filed it away, her resolve hardening. Lila, witnessing the exchange, scribbled furiously on her legal pad, her lawyer's instincts kicking in. She'd hesitated before, but Maya's composure and Daniel's confession stirred her. She caught Maya's eye again, offering a nod of solidarity, her hesitation giving way to action. Richard, oblivious in 1C, called out jovially, "Karen, another round!" His privilege insulated him from the cabin's undercurrents, but for Maya, Lila, and Daniel, the stakes were clear. The cabin's luxury felt like a battlefield, its plush seats and ambient lighting a stark contrast to the fight unfolding. Maya's smartwatch buzzed, a reminder of her keynote, but her focus was on the present. She glanced at Daniel, noting his trembling hands, and softened her tone. "Thank you," she said quietly, her words carrying weight. Daniel nodded, his nervous smile flickering with relief, a seed of redemption planted. Karen, still in the galley, overheard the exchange, her glare intensifying. She'd misjudged Maya, and now Daniel's betrayal stung, a sign her grip was slipping. She forced a smile, serving Richard with exaggerated warmth, but her mind raced, plotting her next move. The plane droned on, slicing through Denver's airspace, the Rocky Mountains a faint shadow below. Maya leaned back, her braided hair brushing the leather seat, and exhaled. Daniel's confession was a turning point, proof that Karen's bias wasn't just personal but systemic, a priority list that favored some over others. Tasha's report, now with Delta's CEO, was a ticking clock, and Maya's confrontation had set the stage for its impact. Lila's growing courage, Daniel's wavering loyalty, and Karen's faltering control were pieces of a puzzle Maya was assembling, each move precise, each moment building toward a reckoning. As the seatbelt sign blinked on, signaling turbulence ahead, Maya knew the real storm was in the cabin, and she was ready to steer it. The clouds thickened outside, but Maya's clarity sharpened. She glanced at her laptop, its charging port intact thanks to Daniel, and felt a surge of purpose. The flight was nearing San Francisco, but the battle was far from over. Karen's sabotage had failed, but her defiance lingered, a challenge Maya would meet with unwavering resolve. The cabin hummed, a stage set for the next act, where Maya's plan would unfold and the truth would rise. The first-class cabin of Delta Flight 815 descended through the San Francisco fog, its lavender-scented air heavy with the weight of an unfolding reckoning. Maya Johnson sat in seat 1A, her charcoal suit a stark contrast to the plush leather, her braided hair catching the dimming cabin lights. The stale turkey sandwich and coffee-stained briefcase were relics of Karen Mitchell's malice, but Maya's focus was razor-sharp. Her smartwatch buzzed, a message from Tasha Williams flashing across the screen. "Report hit Delta's board." "It's go time." Sent from Horizon Innovations' New York office, Tasha's words confirmed that her damning report exposing Karen's systemic bias had reached Delta's CEO, Ed Bastian. Maya's lips curved into a subtle smile, her resolve unyielding. The plane was minutes from landing, and the storm she'd ignited was about to break. In 2A, Lila Nguyen gripped her legal pad, her minimalist black dress creased from hours of tension. The 34-year-old Vietnamese-American lawyer had watched Karen's slights first, the meal, then the coffee spill, then the laptop sabotage at end. Her hesitation had given way to action. During Karen's earlier taunts, Lila had discreetly recorded the attendant refusing Maya's meal, her phone capturing Karen's cold dismissal. These things happen. Lila's heart had raced as she sent the video to Tasha, her fingers trembling but her resolve firm. Now, as the plane descended, she caught Maya's eye, offering a nod of solidarity. Maya returned it, a silent acknowledgement of their growing alliance, forged in the cabin's crucible. Karen Mitchell, unaware of the noose tightening, moved through the aisle with her trademark polish, her blonde hair still tightly pulled, her Delta uniform crisp. At 45, she believed her authority was untouchable, her priority list favoring white passengers a secret she'd kept for years. In the galley, she leaned toward Richard Hayes in 1C, her voice low and smug. "Some passengers think they're above everyone else," she boasted softly, her eyes flicking toward Maya. "I know how to handle them," Richard chuckled obliviously, sipping his champagne. "You're the best, Karen," he said jovially, unaware that cabin AI, part of Delta's VIP monitoring system, recorded every word, her boast a self-inflicted wound. Daniel Ruiz, the 28-year-old junior flight attendant, lingered near the galley, his short hair damp with sweat, his nervous smile gone. His confession to Maya about Karen's biased priority list had shifted something in him, a crack in his loyalty to Karen. He'd saved Maya's laptop from sabotage, and her quiet "thank you" had planted a seed of courage. Now as Karen boasted, Daniel's stomach churned, his guilt mingling with fear of what was coming. He glanced at Maya, her calm demeanor a stark contrast to Karen's hubris, and felt the weight of his choice to speak up. The plane's wheels screeched against the runway at San Francisco International Airport, the cabin jolting as it taxied to Terminal 2. Maya unbuckled her seatbelt deliberately, her movements unhurried, her leather briefcase a shield. Her smartwatch buzzed again. A final message from Tasha. Video received. Sent to Delta. Code red. Lila's recording, combined with Tasha's report, was a ticking bomb, and Maya knew the explosion was imminent. She stood, adjusting her suit jacket, her presence commanding despite the hours of tension. The cabin's luxury felt irrelevant now, its plush seats and ambient lighting a facade for the battle she'd fought and was about to win. As passengers gathered their belongings, Karen moved to the front, her smile forced, still believing she'd maintained control. She exchanged pleasantries with Richard, her tone overly warm, oblivious to the storm awaiting her. The plane door opened, and Maya stepped into the jet bridge, her steps firm. At the gate, two figures waited. Sarah Thompson, Delta's 47-year-old regional VP, her short brown hair framing a serious expression, and Greg Patel, the 40-year-old Indian-American legal counsel, his pinstripe suit and tablet signaling urgency. "Johnson," Sarah said respectfully, her voice low but earnest, "we're deeply sorry for your experience. We've received the report and evidence. We're taking immediate action." Greg nodded, his tone measured. "We're here to ensure this is addressed fully." Maya's gaze was steady, her voice calm but resonant. "This isn't about mates, about change," she said firmly, her words a declaration that echoed beyond the gate. Sarah's eyes softened, a flicker of admiration breaking through her professionalism. "We understand," she replied sincerely. "Please, let's discuss this further." Maya nodded, her briefcase in hand, and walked toward the terminal, her presence a force that silenced the bustle around her. Behind her, Karen and the crew exited via the rear, their usual post-flight chatter absent. Karen's confident stride faltered as she reached the terminal, where three Delta officials in dark suits waited, their expressions grim. "Flight 815 crew, proceed to the Delta Sky Club for an emergency meeting," one said sternly, holding a tablet with a red flag notice. Karen's face froze, her eyes darting to Daniel, who avoided her gaze, his silence deafening. The realization hit her like a wave. Her boasts, her actions, were no longer hidden. The cabin AI, Lila's video and Tasha's report had converged, and she was at the epicenter. Richard, still sipping a to-go coffee, ambled past, oblivious to the drama. Lila followed Maya, her legal pad tucked away, her resolve now afire. Daniel trailed the crew, his nervous smile replaced by a quiet determination. The San Francisco skyline loomed through the terminal windows, a backdrop to a moment that would ripple far beyond this flight. Maya's words, "This isn't about mates, about change," hung in the air, a promise of accountability. As she walked toward the Sky Club with Sarah and Greg, the weight of her briefcase felt lighter, her keynote at Moscone Center now secondary to a larger mission. The investigation was launched, and the cabin's secrets were about to spill, setting the stage for a reckoning that would shake Delta to its core. The Delta Sky Club in Terminal 2 of San Francisco International Airport was a sanctuary of muted elegance, its polished wood paneling and plush armchairs bathed in soft light. But for Karen Mitchell, it felt like a courtroom as she sat before an HR panel, her crisp Delta uniform now a heavy burden. The 45-year-old senior flight attendant clutched a water bottle, her blonde hair still tightly pulled, but her usual polish was cracking her face pale, her eyes darting nervously. Across from her, Sarah Thompson, Delta's 47-year-old regional VP, led the panel, her short brown hair framing a stern expression. Beside her, Greg Patel, the 40-year-old Indian-American legal counsel, reviewed a tablet displaying Tasha Williams' report and Lila Nguyen's video. The evidence was undeniable, and Karen's world was collapsing. Minutes earlier, Maya Johnson had walked away from the gate with Sarah and Greg, her words, "This isn't about mates, about change," echoing in the terminal. Now, in a private lounge room, Maya sat observing, her charcoal suit impeccable, her braided hair catching the light. At 38, the CEO of Horizon Innovations had turned a stale sandwich and a coffee spill into a catalyst for accountability, her calm presence a force that reshaped the room. The Sky Club's usual hum-clinking glasses, murmured conversations, was absent, replaced by a tense silence as Sarah began. "Miss Mitchell," she said firmly, her voice measured but unyielding. "We've reviewed the evidence, passenger complaints, service logs, a video of you denying Miss Johnson's meal, and internal emails." Greg swiped his tablet, projecting an email onto a screen. "Black passengers expect too much. Focus on the real VIPs." Karen's own words, sent to a colleague months ago, glared back at her. Her breath hitched, her voice trembling as she spoke. "That was taken out of context," she stammered weakly, her eyes avoiding Maya's. "I was just venting." Sarah's gaze hardened. "And this?" she asked sharply, playing Lila's video, where Karen's cold dismissal, "These things happen," rang out, followed by her smug boast to Richard Hayes about handling difficult passengers. Karen's face drained of color, her hands shaking. "I didn't mean it like that," she whispered desperately, but the room's silence was deafening. Daniel Ruiz, the 28-year-old junior flight attendant, sat beside Karen, his short hair damp with sweat, his nervous smile replaced by a haunted expression. His confession about Karen's priority list favoring white passengers had cracked open the investigation, and now he faced the panel, his guilt a heavy weight. "Mr. Ruiz," Sarah said evenly, her tone softer but probing, "you admitted to knowing about Ms. Mitchell's practices. Why didn't you report it?" Daniel's voice cracked, his words spilling out haltingly. "I needed the job," he said shakily, his eyes on the floor. "Karen's senior she sets the tone. I thought it was just how things worked." He glanced at Maya, his tone earnest. "I was wrong. I should have spoken up sooner." Sarah nodded, her expression softening slightly. "Your cooperation is noted," she said calmly. "You'll receive a warning, but you're expected to complete bias training." Karen's eyes flashed with betrayal, her voice rising. "You're throwing me under the bus, Daniel?" she snapped bitterly, her composure shattering. Daniel looked away, his silence a final break from her influence. Sarah raised a hand, her tone authoritative. "Ms. Mitchell, effective immediately, you're indefinitely suspended pending a full investigation," she declared firmly. "Your actions violated Delta's ethics code and damaged our reputation." Karen's shoulders slumped, her face ashen, the reality of her career's end sinking in. She'd believed her bias was invisible, her authority untouchable, but Maya's evidence, Tasha's report, Lila's video, the cabin AI had stripped her bare. Maya watched, her expression composed, but her heart heavy. This wasn't about revenge. It was about dismantling a system that let Karen's prejudice fester. She thought of her West End childhood, of her mother's words. "They'll try to make you small, Maya. Don't let them." Karen's downfall was a victory, but it was only the beginning. The panel adjourned, and Sarah approached Maya, her voice low and sincere. "Ms. Johnson, I owe you a personal apology," she said warmly, her eyes meeting Maya's. "I've been in this industry 20 years, and I missed this. Your courage forced us to see it." Maya nodded, her tone steady but resolute. "It's not just about seeing it," she replied firmly. "It's about fixing it." Sarah's lips curved into a respectful smile. "We will," she promised earnestly, "starting with mandatory bias training for all crew." Greg, standing nearby, added, "We're suspending the entire Flight 815 crew for review," his voice precise but supportive. "This goes beyond one person." Maya's gaze softened, a flicker of hope breaking through her resolve. The Sky Club's elegance felt less hollow now, its quiet luxury a backdrop to a moment of justice. Karen, escorted out by an HR official, avoided Maya's eyes, her steps heavy, her career a casualty of her own prejudice. Daniel lingered, his expression a mix of relief and shame, his path to redemption just beginning. Lila, who'd waited outside, joined Maya as they left the Sky Club, her legal pad tucked away, her resolve, now, afire. "You did it," she said quietly, her voice tinged with awe. Maya shook her head, her tone humble but determined. "We did it," she corrected gently, acknowledging Lila's video, Tasha's report, and Daniel's confession. The San Francisco skyline glowed through the terminal windows, a city of innovation awaiting Maya's keynote at Moscone Center. But her focus was broader now, her mission clearer. Delta's commitment to training was a start, but the real work changing, a culture lay ahead. As Maya walked toward her waiting car, her briefcase in hand, she felt the weight of her words at the gate. "This isn't about mates, about change." The Sky Club faded behind her. But the ripple of Karen's downfall was just beginning, a wave that would carry Maya's fight far beyond this moment. The Moscone Center at 747 Howard St. San Francisco buzzed with the energy of the Global Tech Summit, its glass atrium gleaming under the California sun. Maya Johnson stood backstage, her charcoal suit sharp, her braided hair catching the stage light's glow. At 38, the CEO of Horizon Innovations was no stranger to high-stakes presentations, but today felt different. Hours earlier, at the Delta Sky Club, she'd watched Karen Mitchell's suspension, her words, "This isn't about mates, about change," setting a new course. Now, as she prepared to deliver a keynote on AI ethics, the weight of Flight 815's events lingered, a quiet fire fueling her resolve. The auditorium hummed with tech executives, investors, and innovators, their chatter a backdrop to a moment that would transcend the stage. Maya stepped to the podium, her presence commanding, her voice steady but resonant. "AI can amplify human potential," she began confidently, "but only if it serves everyone, not just a select few." She paused, her gaze sweeping the crowd, then added softly, "Today, I was reminded that even in first class, some are served last or not at all." The audience leaned in, sensing the weight of her words. Without naming Delta, she wove her experience into a call for equity, her story of a denied meal and a fight for justice striking a universal chord. The room erupted in a standing ovation, the applause, a wave that carried her message beyond the hall. Among the crowd was James Carter, the 22-year-old Georgia Tech intern who'd met Maya at Hartsfield-Jackson Airport. His buzz cut and glasses framed an expression of awe as he typed furiously on his phone, posting to X, "Maya Johnson just dropped truth at Tech Summit. Equality isn't optional." Cetone A. The hashtag, inspired by Maya's seat on Flight 815, caught fire, spreading across X as attendees and followers shared clips of her speech. James's post, with its raw admiration, went viral, amassing thousands of likes within hours. "She's a legend," he muttered excitedly to a fellow intern, his pride in Maya amplifying her reach. Across the city, in Delta's headquarters at 1030 Delta Belvedere, Atlanta, the fallout from Flight 815 was reshaping the airline. Sarah Thompson, the 47-year-old regional VP, sat in a boardroom, her short brown hair tucked behind her ears as she addressed executives. "We've suspended the Flight 815 crew and launched mandatory bias training," she announced firmly, her voice carrying the weight of Maya's evidence. "But that's not enough. We're rolling out a VIP feedback app to catch issues in real time, and we've invited Ms. Johnson as a cultural advisor." Greg Patel, the 40-year-old legal counsel, nodded, his pinstripe suit crisp as he added, "This protects our brand and our passengers." The room buzzed with agreement. The reform's a direct response to Tasha Williams' report and Lila Nguyen's video. Now internal touchstones for change. Meanwhile, the media storm ignited. CNN's headline blared, "Black CEO exposes airline bias on Delta flight." The San Francisco Chronicle ran a front-page story, "From Seat 1A to Systemic Change." Newsrooms buzzed with clips of Maya's keynote. Her line about being served last, a viral soundbite. On X, Moscone trended, with former Delta passengers sharing stories of similar slights. "I was ignored in first class too," one user posted, tagging Moscone. Time for change. The movement, sparked by James's post, became a digital rallying cry, amplifying Maya's fight to millions. Karen Mitchell, now suspended, sat in her San Francisco apartment, her blonde hair loose, her face haggard as she scrolled through X. Posts about her suspension flooded her feed, former passengers recounting her dismissive service. "Karen M. made me feel invisible," one wrote, the words cutting deeper than any HR panel. At 45, she'd believed her bias was discreet, her priority list a harmless norm, but the online fallout was merciless. "This wasn't supposed to happen," she muttered bitterly, her voice hollow, the screen's glow a mirror to her unraveling. Lila Nguyen, back at her hotel, watched the media coverage, her minimalist black dress swapped for casual jeans. The 34-year-old lawyer's video had been a linchpin, and seeing Moscone trend filled her with quiet pride. She texted Maya, "You're changing the game." Maya, now at her hotel near Moscone, read the message, her lips curving into a warm smile. But it was James's post that caught her eye. His words, "She's a legend," sparking a flicker of joy. "Kid's got heart," she said softly, her voice tinged with affection. She reposted his tweet, adding, "Change starts with us all, Moscone." The gesture sent James's phone buzzing, his excitement palpable even across the city. The San Francisco skyline shimmered outside Maya's window, a city alive with possibility. Delta's Reformsa feedback app, her advisory role were steps forward, but she knew the real work was cultural, not just corporate. Her keynote had tied her professional and personal arcs, her fight for AI equity mirroring her stand against bias on Flight 815. She thought of her West End roots, her mother's words, "Don't let them make you small." Karen's downfall was a victory, but the media storm and Moscone were a movement. One she hadn't anticipated but now embraced. As night fell, Maya sat at her desk, her leather briefcase open, her keynote notes scattered. The media frenzy, CNN, The Chronicle, amplified her voice, but it was James's post, Lila's courage, and Tasha's data that grounded her. Delta's boardroom in Atlanta buzzed with reform plans, Sarah and Greg leading the charge. Karen's apartment grew darker, her screen a relentless reminder of her fall. The Moscone hashtag pulsed online, a digital heartbeat of change. Maya looked out at the city, her resolve unshaken. The summit was over, but her mission was just beginning. A ripple from a single seat, now a wave poised to reshape an industry. The Atlanta skyline sparkled through the windows of Horizon Innovation's office at 191 Peachtree St. Anne, a beacon of progress in the heart of the city. 6 months after Delta Flight 815, Maya Johnson sat at a conference table, her charcoal suit swapped for a vibrant blazer, her braided hair loose, reflecting a rare moment of ease. At 38, the CEO had turned a denied meal into a movement, and the Moscone Coalition, co-founded with Lila Nguyen, was now a force. The office buzzed with activity screens displaying X posts, whiteboards scribbled with workshop plans. Maya prepared for a session at Georgia Tech, 225 North Ave NW, to train service workers on equity. Her mother's words from her West End childhood echoed, "Don't let them make you small." Today, she was ensuring no one else was diminished. Lila Nguyen, 34, stood beside her, her minimalist dresses replaced by a bold red jacket, her legal pad now a tablet filled with coalition strategies. The Vietnamese-American lawyer had quit her law firm, inspired by Maya's resolve on Flight 815. "I was done sitting on the sidelines," she said firmly, her voice steady as she reviewed workshop slides. Maya smiled warmly, her tone appreciative. "You're making this real, Lila." Their partnership, forged in the first-class cabin, had grown into a mission to reshape service industries. Lila's eyes sparkled with purpose, her journey from hesitant bystander to activist complete, her video of Karen Mitchell's slight a catalyst that still fueled their work. James Carter, now 23, entered the room, his buzz cut sharp, his glasses glinting with pride. The Georgia Tech intern who'd sparked Moscone with his viral X-post had secured a full-time role at Horizon, mentored by Maya. "Got the latest numbers," he said excitedly, holding up his phone. "Moscone's got 20 posts this week alone." His post at the Moscone Center had ignited a digital firestorm, and now he was Maya's social media strategist, his ambition tempered by humility. "You taught me to speak up," he added shyly, his voice tinged with gratitude. Maya's smile widened, her tone encouraging. "You were already loud, James. I just gave you a megaphone." Their bond, born at Hartsfield-Jackson Airport, was now a cornerstone of the coalition. In a San Francisco apartment, Karen Mitchell sat alone, her blonde hair unkempt, her face etched with exhaustion. At 45, the former Delta flight attendant was unemployed, her suspension a public wound. Scrolling through X, she saw Moscone post stories of bias, calls for change, each one a reminder of her role in the system. "They're twisting it," she muttered bitterly, her voice hollow, but a flicker of doubt crept in. She'd believed her priority list was harmless, a norm endorsed by Delta's training, but the posts from passengers she'd dismissed, Black, Asian, Latino, painted a different picture. Karen's reflection wasn't redemption. It was a painful reckoning. Her isolation, a stark contrast to the coalition's vibrancy. Across town at Delta's headquarters, 1030 Delta Belvedere, Atlanta, Sarah Thompson reviewed a CNN report. Delta's reforms reduced service disparities by 40% in 6 months. The 47-year-old regional VP, her short brown hair framing a determined face, had championed the change's mandatory bias training, a VIP feedback app, Maya's advisory role. "It's working," she said confidently to Greg Patel, the 40-year-old legal counsel, his pinstripe suit crisp as he nodded. "Miss Johnson's input was key," he added respectfully, his tablet showing data from the app. The reforms, spurred by Tasha Williams' report and Lila's video, were reshaping Delta's culture, a testament to Maya's impact. Maya stood at Georgia Tech's lecture hall, addressing a diverse group of service workers, flight attendants, hotel staff, baristas. "Equity isn't a policy, it's a practice," she said passionately, her voice carrying the weight of Flight 815. "Every seat, every customer, deserves respect." The workers nodded, inspired, their notebooks filled with strategies from the Moscone coalition. Lila, facilitating a breakout session, shared her story, her tone earnest. "I was a bystander once. Don't be me act." The room buzzed with dialogue, a microcosm of the movement's reach. Back at Horizon, Maya opened a letter from a 16-year-old girl in Miami, inspired by a Forbes article about Moscone. "My teacher said tech's not for me," the girl wrote. "But you showed me I belong." Maya's eyes softened, her fingers tracing the blue ink. She penned a reply, her handwriting deliberate. "You belong in every seat. Keep pushing." The words echoed her own journey, a promise to the next generation. "She's got fire," Maya said softly, her voice warm with hope, sealing the letter. Tasha Williams, in New York, monitored Moscone's growth, her vibrant afro catching the glow of her screens. "We're trending again," she texted Maya, her tone triumphant. Daniel Ruiz, now a trained Delta attendant, saw the post during a break, his redemption arc quietly unfolding. The Atlanta skyline glowed outside, a city where Maya's fight had taken root. Karen, in San Francisco, closed her phone. The Moscone posts a mirror she couldn't escape. The coalition's workshops, Delta's reforms, and James's role were tangible legacies, but Maya's letter to the girl was personal, a quiet act of empowerment. The office hummed, a hub of change. Maya looked at Lila and James, her team, her family. "We're just getting started," she said resolutely, her voice a beacon. The Moscone coalition was no longer a hashtag, was a movement, its roots in a single flight, now branching across industries. As she prepared for Delta's Diversity Summit, Maya felt her mother's words anew. Don't let them make you small. She hadn't, and now she was lifting others, ensuring every seat, from 1A to the back row, was a place of respect. The skyline faded into dusk, but the light of Seatone A burned bright, a legacy poised to endure. The first-class cabin of Delta Flight 920 gleamed with quiet luxury as it lifted off from San Francisco International Airport, bound for Atlanta. Maya Johnson settled into Seat 1A, her vibrant blazer a contrast to the plush leather, her braided hair catching the soft cabin lights. At 38, the CEO of Horizon Innovations had transformed a denied meal on Flight 815 into the Seatone A Coalition, a movement now reshaping service industries. 6 months later, she was returning home, invited to keynote Delta's Diversity Summit at the World Congress Center, 285 Andrew Young International BLVD-NW, Atlanta. As the plane climbed, Maya's leather briefcase rested beside her, a symbol of battles fought and won. A small nameplate on her seat caught her eye. Seat of Change, honoring Maya Johnson. Her breath caught, a quiet smile spreading across her face, the gesture a testament to her impact. The cabin's lavender scent and ambient lighting felt different now, a far cry from the tension of Flight 815. Daniel Ruiz, the 28-year-old Latino flight attendant, approached, his short hair neat, his once nervous smile replaced by genuine warmth. His redemption arc had unfolded since confessing Karen Mitchell's biased priority list. His bias training complete, his service now equitable. "Ms. Johnson, your salmon and Pinot Noir," he said respectfully, placing a perfectly plated meal before her, the same order Karen had denied. "It's an honor to serve you." Maya's eyes softened, her voice warm. "You've come a long way, Daniel," she replied gently, acknowledging his growth. He nodded, his tone earnest. "Thanks to you," he said quietly, retreating with a newfound confidence. Maya savored the salmon, the taste, a small victory, but her mind was on the broader triumph. The Seatone A Coalition, co-founded with Lila Nguyen, had grown to 50,000 followers, their stories of bias and resilience flooding the platform. James Carter's viral post had ignited the movement, and now, as Horizon's social media strategist, he kept it alive. Lila, having left law to lead coalition workshops, was training service workers at Georgia Tech. Tasha Williams' report and Lila's video had exposed Karen's prejudice, while Sarah Thompson and Greg Patel's reforms reducing Delta's service disparities by 40% proved change was possible. Maya's letter to a 16-year-old fan, urging her to belong in every seat, had cemented her mission. Each piece, from a stale sandwich to a global movement, was a thread in a tapestry of equity. The plane soared over the Rockies, the clouds a canvas for Maya's reflection. She thought of her West End childhood, her mother's words, "Don't let them make you small." That fight, sparked in Seat 1A, had grown into a coalition, a media storm, a legacy. Delta's summit invitation was a nod to her role as a cultural advisor, but the nameplate felt personal, a symbol of a system beginning to listen. She glanced at her smartwatch, buzzing with a message from Lila. "Summit's gonna be huge. Seatone A's ready." Maya smiled, replying, "We're all ready." Her tone was resolute, her heart full. Across the country, Karen Mitchell sat in her dim San Francisco apartment, her blonde hair loose, her career a memory. The Seatone A posts she'd seen stories of passengers she'd dismissed still haunted her, a mirror to her role in a biased system. In Atlanta, James prepared summit graphics, his excitement palpable. "Maya's gonna kill it," he told a colleague, his voice brimming with pride. Lila, at Georgia Tech, led a workshop, her words fierce. "Every customer matters." Tasha, in New York, tracked the coalition's metrics, her afro catching the screen's glow as she texted Maya, "50K and counting. You're unstoppable." Maya looked out the window, the sky a boundless blue. The cabin, once a battlefield, was now a place of respect, thanks to Daniel's service and Delta's reforms. The nameplate Seat of Change was more than a gesture. It was a promise that every seat, from 1A to the back row, could be a place of dignity. Her keynote at the summit would push further, demanding equity not just in airlines but across industries. She thought of the 16-year-old in Miami, her letter a beacon for the next generation. "Change starts with one seat," she murmured reflectively, her voice soft but certain. "But it's for everyone." The plane began its descent into Hartsfield-Jackson, Atlanta's skyline emerging below. Maya's briefcase held notes for the summit, but her heart carried the weight of Citoyen movement born from a slight, fueled by courage, and sustained by community. Daniel passed by, offering a nod, his redemption a quiet victory. The seatbelt sign chimed, and Maya fastened hers, her resolve unshaken. The fight wasn't over, but the path was clear, each step a testament to her mother's wisdom. As the wheels touched down, Maya felt a surge of purpose. The World Congress Center awaited, a stage to amplify Citoyen. But her story, and its impact, belonged to everyone who'd felt unseen. She stood, her blazer vibrant, her briefcase light. "Let's keep this going," she said firmly, her voice a call to the unseen, the unheard, the underestimated. To the audience beyond the cabin, she urged, "Have you faced bias? Share your Citoyen story below. Like, subscribe, and let's keep the change going." The cabin faded, but the light of her mission burned bright, a legacy etched in every seat, ready to soar anew.